I'll tell you quick. Should we tell? We have plenty of time today, right? Like, is there any football game? We don't watch football as much anymore, right? Until they stand and honor our country, we don't care. Until they honor that. But, you know, when I first came in, I said, how old is Air Force One? Now, we have the greatest people in the world in our military. They're incredible. Look at the condition. That plane looks like it's 2 days old, right? But it's 30 years. Can you believe it? So I said, so what's going on? Well, they're negotiating with one, and they signed a contract for $5.7 billion. It's actually 2 planes. People don't realize this. Air Force One is 2 planes, okay? You always have 2. You're very spoiled when you have this job. I guess they figure if it's ever a little bit off or a little broken, you just rip out the second one for $2.5 billion. But it's a most incredible machine. So anyway, I said, well, but 30 years is a long time. I'm not talking about for me. I'm talking it's a long time, and I'm good at airplanes, okay? Been very good at airplanes. I said, so what's the price? $5.7 billion. I said, you got to be kidding. For 2 airplanes, okay? I have friends, they order a Gulfstream, and they pay $78 million. I said, half of an engine costs more than that. So 5.7, so I said, I met with the head of Boeing, good man, and I said, this is the first week. I said, we're not going to buy it. Signed contract, all done. $5.7 billion. I said, too much money. We're not buying it. They said, why do you say it's too much? I said, because Obama agreed to it, so it has to be too much. It's the only thing. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. But I knew if they were buying it, it was too much money. So I said, nope, I'm not going to do it. I said, cancel the order. So I went to a general. I said, General, I want to cancel the order. Yes, sir. And I said, why can't we keep using this 30 years, sir? And he's right. You know, look, planes would come in from especially other countries, but from Arab countries, and it would be a brand new, what's called a 747-800. That's brand new right off the thing. It's actually a much different plane. It's much longer. It's got a much bigger wingspan. You wouldn't believe it. See the top the way it is? It's a much longer top. I hope you people are interested in this. But no, isn't this better than being on a teleprompter, right? No, but see the front. It's got its second floor is much longer. It's as beautiful as that is. It's far more beautiful, bigger, more impressive, more everything, and it's the right thing. So I said, so General, it's a signed contract. I want to terminate the contract. Yes, sir. I said, by the way, you can terminate it, no problem, right? Yes, sir. I'm very proud of it, sir. Good. You don't have to pay anything, do you? Yes, sir, we have a termination fee. Oh. How much is the termination fee, General? Sir, we pay $250 million that we're allowed to terminate the contract. It's $5.7 billion. So for $250 million, I said, wait a minute, General, wait. They haven't built it yet. They haven't even started it yet. We have to pay $250 million to terminate the contract. I don't like that deal, General. General, don't terminate it, because I want to get it. But I don't want to pay $250, and so just don't terminate it. Just tell them we don't want it. Yes, sir, so he told them. Then I told him, I said, nope, I don't want it. And we negotiated for about a month. And I said to the head of Boeing, really good guy, I said, hey, Dennis, look, it's 5.7. It's got to have a 3 in front of it. Now, I don't know anything about it. And it's very, very special. What they have in this plane, they don't have in any plane in the world, okay? This is incredible. The kind of equipment. The equipment costs more than the plane. So I said, no, Dennis, it has to have a 3 in front of it. So this has 5.7, a 5. I said, got to have, in other words, we got to skip the 4s, we got to have a 3. No, sir, I can't do it. So then he comes back a couple of weeks later, he takes $100 million off. I said, nope, it's got to have a 3. I said, cancel it, I don't care. Don't cancel it in writing. I said, we don't want the planes. I was very careful. We don't want the planes. Are you canceling the order? I said, no, we don't want the plane. Because I don't want to pay $250 of your money, if you don't mind. By the way, I could tell you about 300 of these stories, all right? These are stories that are all different things. This one, I just see the plane sitting there so beautiful. So I said, no, we don't want the plane. Now, I can't really go to Europe and order the comparable plane, because there is no comparable plane, but I can. I can't say I'm going to buy it in Europe. I'm going to buy Air Force One in Europe. Somehow that doesn't work, so I can't. I said, no, we're going to get used to this. We're going to have this plane. We'll fix it up. It'll be just fine. So time goes by, and they raise it. They bring it down another couple of hundred. They bring it down another couple, and then all of a sudden it started dropping like a rock. And we agreed to 3.95. Somebody said, well, it must be a totally different plane. Nope. In fact, I actually had one generator added. It's not a big deal. One generator added. And they said to me, then Boeing came to me, so it's 3.9 as opposed to 5.7. Now, that took about 2 months, 3 months. But isn't it really nice, right? The same exact plane, except with a different paint job. Our plane is going to be as beautiful as that looks, Jackie O. Our plane is going to be red, white, and blue. Doesn't that make sense? Red, white. And then they came to me, and the general came to me. The general came to me, and he said, sir, I know the way you like everything to be perfect. And sir, instead of coming down, see the big stairway on the left? You're really up there. When you're at that stairway, you're like on a 3-story building, right? And sir, if it's rainy or bad weather or it's blowing, and I'm thinking about my hair, right? Oh, sometimes, by the time I get down, the big one, the little one is a different deal, but the big one, which we use 95%, by the time I come down that big stairway, sometimes I am wiped out. You know, the wind is blowing. I said, is there any wind outside? Yes, sir, 50 miles an hour, that's good. The stairs are shaking, I'm shaking the whole thing. By the time I get into the car, I end up running the last. By the time I get into that car, I'm wiped out, okay? I gotta say. Does anybody have a mirror? So the general said, sir, we can build a new stairway under the plane, sir. It's a spiral stairway. I said, wow, that's a great idea. You'd be totally protected, sir. I said, fantastic. How much? 50. I said, wow, 50. That's a great deal. I'll take it. I said, I'll take it. I said, by the way, so for $50,000, I can build. No, sir, $50 million. I said, I don't want this stairway for $50 million. I tell you this because you people understand business. No, he said, we can build it for 50. I thought he meant $50,000. That's a lot of money for a stairway. No, we can do it for $50 million. So if you don't mind, I decided, let my hair get messed up, right? So that's the story. That's a long story on the beautiful Air Force.